What's going on, guys? So I've had a bit of an interesting morning. I made a modification to my trailer. So this is my 14-foot Texas Pride trailer, super overbuilt. I mean, when you look at 14-foot trailers, they typically weigh about 1,500 pounds unloaded, and then when they're loaded up, they're typically maybe around 4,000 pounds, roughly, maybe 3,000 pounds even. They usually have about a 1,500 to 2,000 pound maximum cargo capacity, but this specific one we built to have a 16,000 pound GVWR. The trailer weighs about 5,000 pounds as it sits dry, so it gives it about 11,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity, which means this is technically a strong enough trailer to be able to handle the weight of our mini excavator on the back of it, which is pretty crazy. That mini excavator right there, which is the John Deere 50G, which is not like a super compact excavator. It's actually a relatively good size. That said, we made a modification to this. If you followed the channel for a while, let's see if you can spot it before I cut to a break and come right back. All right, so when the folks over at Texas Pride made this trailer, I asked them specifically for a 14-foot trailer with no dovetail off of the back, basically no area that slants down slightly to help with breakover angle, because I wanted a completely flat deck for a 14-foot trailer. I kind of regret that now. I wish this trailer was actually like a 16-foot trailer with a dovetail, because I'm finding that 14 feet is, adequate for smaller applications, but it's definitely pushing it when you're trying to load other stuff up. Like, for instance, when I loaded the tractor and the bucket, it's like right to the end of it, and I have to lift up my 3-point attachment above this area right here so I can pull the tractor as far back as possible if I want to carry anything extra in front of the tractor. So it's a bit of a pain, and again, I really wish I would have actually taken their advice, because they gave me the advice and saying, are you sure you want it this length, and are you sure you don't want the dovetail at the end? Mainly because this trailer was going to sit higher than your traditional lowboy. Most lowboy trailers probably sit about 6 inches lower than this one, but because we went with much heavier duty axles, you can see that they're 8-lug axles. I believe they're either 7 or 8,000 pound axles. I think 8,000 pound axles under here. And because of that, this thing sits up higher. It has taller tires on it, and because it has twin 8-inch stacked C-channels, again, super overbuilt. I love the fact that it has the saddlebags on each side of it. It has the winch mounted to the front, and it also has the Stillwell hydraulic front tongue jack. That is super cool. But that said, one of the areas that they definitely overbuilt this is this back gate. So this back gate is insanely built. It is super heavy, and they had these legs sticking off the back of it that were designed to offer support whenever you're loading something really heavy over the back, so it doesn't pull too much tongue weight off of the front, possibly lifting the back tires of your vehicle off of the ground, which is a concern. So again, they put these really heavy duty C-channel pieces of steel back here to act as kind of a ground support for that. The problem is that if I ever need to tilt the trailer up like this, where it's a little nose high, to be able to reduce the breakover angle, again, because I did not get the dovetail that they recommended, and I want to load like my zero turns on here, it becomes very problematic, because the zero turns tend to want to catch the deck right here, and it's a pain. I have to push the deck up as far as it'll go with my foot while I'm actually loading it to avoid that contact from happening. Also, it makes the gate insanely heavy. I mean, you can see we put this Gorilla lift on here because it was so difficult to lift the gate up. And a lot of people are like, hey, are you just a wussy man? You can't do it. But then they would try it themselves and realize it was a tremendous amount of weight to try to get in the up position to lock it in place. So again, a lot of reasons why this was added, and the ground stands were there. But what I decided to do, because I realized that many times when I have the trailer level, the ground stands weren't even making contact with the ground when I was loading the tractor on the back or anything else, which means it really wasn't leveraging that much weight off of the back of the truck, mainly because when we built this trailer, one thing I had asked for is to have the axles positioned as far back as feasibly possible. So if you look at it from the side here, you'll see that the axles are actually positioned far further back than they might traditionally be on a 14-foot trailer. Usually they'd be right here, but they're positioned like 8 inches further back, which means it would take a tremendous amount of weight to create a pivot point right here to actually cause the front to lift up, especially when it's hitched up to a truck, because you have all of this mass right here, which is pushing down on the very front. So again, I didn't think that that was going to be too much of a concern, and I could always add some jacks right here to add extra stability if I need it to prevent that from happening. But that said, I cut these off, and it made the gates so much lighter and easier to handle. I used to have this thing connected, and I was able to disconnect it because I don't need it anymore. And you can see they actually rusted, and I had to actually cut them off. These right here were really, really helpful in getting the gates up. The problem, or the ramp up, the problem is that it actually made it a little bit too easy for the gate to come up. So whenever I was putting the gates down, they would want to kind of retract themselves back up because of the amount of force that this gorilla lift was applying to it. So I was going to mess with this to see if I could kind of change it a little bit and loosen the slack. And then I decided, you know what, I don't need these things sticking off the back. They're not really helping, and they're making it actually more difficult, because when we're at an angle like this, they make contact with the ground too soon, and I can't even lower them completely. So the combination of removing them and not having to use this and removing that weight is actually pretty nice. Just taking those off removed probably about 50 pounds worth of weight, because they used a very, very thick C-channel on here, and it was definitely overkill for what this application needed. But again, if I need to add those supports, I can add them right here. I can put some jacks right here, maybe some scissor jacks or maybe some drop leg jacks, but that's going to give me the flexibility I need in the future if I want to add those back. But yeah, really cool little project. It was simple. I used my Diablo blade that cut right through that steel like it was butter. Put a bunch of welding gear on just so I didn't have to worry about metal shards flying at me, because they certainly will. But this thing is going to work so much better, I think, for our application. And again, those ground legs really weren't helping. They weren't doing much. And because the only truck I tow this with is my F450, I have enough rear axle weight to really prevent anything from taking this off the ground. But I might actually make a video experimenting with that to see at what point I'm removing so much weight off the back axle of the truck that that's something to be concerned about. Because we're flat ground out here, I don't have to worry about the truck driving away, and I could always chalk the front tires to prevent anything really nasty from happening if the tires were to lift off the ground, the rear tires, that is. But yeah, really, really cool. Glad that it was pretty easy to knock out. I might take a reciprocal saw and cut the rest of those legs off. Let me show you what the legs look like over here so you can just see how bulky that material was. But these are the legs that I removed. And like I said, they are no joke. They are quite a bit of steel that I was able to remove off the back, thus removing about 50 pounds of weight off of the back of the trailer, which is also really nice. And it's not really going to account for much when you're dealing with a trailer built like this, but it definitely is going to help in terms of working with these ramps, which are, again, absolutely insane. Anyways, guys, sure hope you enjoyed this video. Just wanted to give you an update on some of the things that I'm doing out here. We've been using this trailer a lot lately. We used it for the suspension hitch testing that we did with those big bags of sand. We moved the tractor around and we moved mowers around. I had to go help a buddy out on his property with a zero turn. We loaded it on here. The tractor loads on here really, really easily. This is ideal for the tractor. Again, I just wish it was a couple feet longer with a dovetail, the things that they had actually recommended. I'll probably take these gorilla lifts off because I no longer need them. And they kind of take up space on top of the rail that might be important at some point. So removing those is going to be an interesting project, but it shouldn't be too difficult. I just got to remember how I put these things on. You know that there's a bolt right here that goes all the way through. I think I have another 2 bolts right here that go all the way through, and then this one's just bolted straight down in place. But I got to go back and actually remember exactly how I was able to access all of this so I can take it all off. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.